Testing, testing. Can you hear me? If you can hear me, let me know in the chat section. If you can hear me, type your city in the chat. Hold on, I'll give it a few more, I guess, minutes or seconds, so if anyone else can join, if anyone else wants to join. That's funny. C Falls, first question. How do you feel about the One Big Happy Life clapback video? This is my first time doing a live, so I hope everyone can hear me well. Let me know where you're from in the comment section below. But C Falls, to address that question, I guess for that video particularly, honestly, I didn't think much about it, to be quite frankly. I made my video and I said what I had to say in regards to the subject and how I felt about the different philosophies between Dave Ramsey and One Big Happy Life. And, you know, they have their perspective and I guess took offense to the video, which wasn't the point of the video, but I understand why they could take offense. And so I didn't think much about it. It was what it was. Thanks for those that show in love. Let me know if you have any questions. It can be financially related questions. It could be questions that's in regards to economic empowerment in general. It can be, you could even talk politics. It doesn't really matter to me. Just let me know if you have any questions in the comment section below or in the comment section. Travis, where in Queens are you from? And Bahia, when you said financial learning plans for 15-year-olds, are you talking about courses that they can take, schools that they can go to? Trav from Dozo. I mean, if it's Trav from Dozo, then definitely know each other, most likely. And so let me take this question. My son just started his first job as a bus boy and is garnering a substantial amount of money. I think for anyone young, I would keep financial investing pretty simple. And everything that I say is for educational purposes and entertainment. None of this should be considered financial advice. You should definitely seek a personal financial advisor. But especially for young people, since they have so much time in the market for their money to grow, if you put your money in an S&P 500 fund and allow that to grow, your son can have a lot of money in the future. And so that would be my recommendation. I always tell people, I think the stock market is one of the best things you can invest in ever. But if you need advice on what stocks you should be investing in, technically my recommendation is that you probably should not be investing in stocks because you really want to do your own research. But the S&P 500 has a a very long 100-year history of producing a solid return. So that's the best place that someone can put their money when they do, if they don't want to think about it too much. Yeah, I think learning investing young is a great thing. I definitely would say there are a lot of great resources on YouTube, including this channel, obviously. And I would get your son, I would see what type of personalities your son may like and even share those type of videos with your son. And when you say Cassandra, when you're talking about SBA loans, are you talking about the loans that the PPP loans that the government gave to everyone? And I'm responding to Latoya right now. One of the first things that I did to learn about finance, I think, is just a lot of reading and a lot of YouTube. Honestly, you can learn just about everything that you want about finance from YouTube, especially what good books you can check out. And that's one of the things that I personally did to learn about finance, learn about investing, is read a lot of books. And then from there, if you want to pursue something further, you can just go get your licenses, sometimes even just to get the education that comes with it. But just reading a ton of books on finance, watching a lot of YouTube videos on personal finance, those are easy ways to really up your knowledge. And I would say for most people, just put your money in an S&P 500 fund, um, let it sit there, and then just learn about the stock market. Because obviously, especially this year, we've had a tremendous return after the big crash in March. But there are a lot of analysts that are saying the economy still has not recovered. Tech companies are doing very well in terms of their performance over the last 3 to 4 months, but the economy still hasn't recovered. Wall Street is doing pretty well, but Main Street is still hurting. And that is going to take its toll on the stock market eventually. And so we're seeing a projection that over the next 3 years that there's going to be a great transfer in wealth. And that's just another way of saying that the stock market may be greatly affected, and those that have their money in the stock market will get hurt. I'm even in a lot of stock investing groups, and I'm seeing right now a lot of people losing money through options and various trades. So I would always tell people, until you're really an expert in some of these things, stick to the basics and just keep learning. I know Trav had asked a question about how I felt about politics. I just always tell people, voting your best interest. That's the best advice that I can give someone. You know, I you know I wouldn't go as far to say I wouldn't tell someone who to vote for and what to vote for, but I rather keep that information for I usually share that stuff with my family, but vote what's in your interest. And I think most people can figure out what's in their best interest, what's in the best interest of their community. And that's a good way to tackle that. So Wall Street will be considered like investments, stock markets, even forex. Most people probably wouldn't consider it Wall Street, but Wall Street will be considered those market financial institutions. And so, for example, over the course of the last Apple, for instance, is up about 100%. Their stocks are up about 100% year to date, at least the last time that I checked. I probably can go take a look right now really quickly. But Apple stock year to date, even after the big crash, even after the fact that they had a little bit of a loss. And I'm actually looking at it right now. I think I'm seeing a 50%. But stocks are up significantly high, especially tech stocks, and that's Wall Street. Wall Street can thrive while Main Street is the everyone else that's in our general community. So that's people that are going day to day works. How's the housing market? How's the job market? And so we know people are still getting laid off in great numbers. We know that people still haven't been able to go back to work. We know people are getting kicked out of their homes. And all those people are technically what we would consider operating on Mail Street. And so, in terms of our overall economy, in terms of those that are working for a living, that not, are not necessarily heavy invested in markets or don't own their own business, and that are pretty much not thriving right now. And so we see people like Jeff Bezos and Mark Zuckerberg just earning billions of dollars within this crash, or within this in the midst of Rona. And then we see a lot of people also suffering. And so I think that would be a good way of looking at Wall Street versus Main Street. Wall Street can perform really, usually there's a stronger correlation between how Wall Street and Main Street is doing. But right now, Wall Street is like thoroughly thriving to some degree, and Main Street is still in the midst of, Rona. And a lot of times on YouTube, we try not to say certain words because it may affect how YouTube views our videos. So that's why I say Rona or 19 instead of the full word. So the public service loan forgiveness, and again, with this disclaimer, I will say this is not financial advice. So far, we've seen about a 1% of people, maybe a little more than that now, been approved for public service loan forgiveness. And I think we'll probably see more people in the future approve for public service loan forgiveness. And so that I think that would be a good thing. I'm hard pressed to say put all your hopes in it, just because we know that for a lot of different reasons, people don't get approved. The public service loan forgiveness has only been around since 2007. And so 2017 was the first time where people were actually allowed to have their loans forgiven. And for those who don't know, public service loans forgiveness is when you're doing your job in a public sector. So, for example, a teacher, after 10 years, they should be able to have their federal loans discharged if they qualify, if they meet the criteria for public service loan forgiveness. And so I think it would be a good thing if it actually applied to everyone or it worked for everyone. But we know that a lot of people have been rejected for public service loan forgiveness. I think it's a good thing overall, but we also know that laws change constantly. And so, we know under the current administration, a lot of even arrangements that we had with foreign countries were backed out of. And so we don't know what the law is going to be 10 years from now. We don't know what taxes is going to be. And I would just say, if you're banking on public service loan forgiveness, make sure you have a plan B as well. Yeah, that's the easiest way to look at Main Street, as how the general public is doing. How Yes, and this has been interesting. Oh, if you haven't already, please smash the like button. That certainly helps with the YouTube algorithm. Like I said, this is my first time doing a live video, so it's definitely an interesting format to read through the questions. I'm just curious, so let me know where you're from. So feel free to type your I guess city or state in the comment section so I can see where you're from. And let me know if you have any other general questions that I can, potentially answer for you on this call. If you have any general questions about myself at all, if you would like to know anything about me, let me know in the comment section. Don, it's always good to see you, man. Me and my wife talk about moving to North Carolina all the time, so I think that's a solid move. West Palm Beach, Florida. And I don't know if some of you guys, well, I'm living in Boston right now, just to give a little bit of information on myself as I ask you guys to tell me where you're from. I'm living in Boston right now, but I'm originally from Trinidad and Tobago. That's where I born, spent most of my adolescence years, moved up to New York City, and now I'm living in Boston, have been here for about 8 years. What inspired me to help Black people? And I've always, I guess since college is when I really start focus on community economic empowerment. And I know a lot of people probably have a similar story. After reading the autobiography of Malcolm X, and I think I read that my freshman year of college. After reading that book, I think I just felt the need to give back to my community, even as a freshman in college. And so at that time, we were doing a lot of protesting and stuff like that. Um, One of the things that I wanted to do in my life was going to politics. And then, even after reading a book called Powernomics by Dr. Claude Anderson, he was pretty much like Black people should focus on economic development before focusing on political advancements. And that's not a statement to say don't vote or anything. I definitely think people should vote. But, just the fact that he's saying Black people need economic advancement before politics is one of the reasons why I felt like, I needed my impact to be in an area where I felt my community needed the most support. And so I guess from that time, I really focused myself personally, first myself really learning about finances, the financial markets, investing, and then from there, trying to share that information with anyone that would listen. And I'm going on a slight tangent. Elmano, let me know what IBR payment stands for. Thanks for the love, Sasha, in the comment section. Just reading through the comment. Income-based repayments. And this is, I would say, Elmano, it really, for me, I've always been on the side of aggressively paying off debt. And so that's the personal stance that I take myself. And so I would feel like a hypocrite if I don't tell people, you should try to aggressively tackle down your debt. What I always do say, though, because I do financial coaching with individuals, your individual situation matters a lot in terms of the specific on how you should try to go about paying off your debt. Then I'm someone that thinks, in a general sense, Dave Ramsey baby step is a pretty simple process for most people to follow, and so that's something that I would actually I will actually recommend most people follow. Now, if you have a personal financial coach, and I say financial coach over financial advisors, but financial advisors usually don't teach people how to pay off debt. They usually more focus on an investment side. And this is not to say anything wrong with financial advisors, because there are amazing financial advisors out there. But financial advisors, most of them are either paid based on the products they sell to people. So maybe it may be a life insurance may be a part of their package, or they may be paid through based on a percentage of the person's net worth. So someone has $2 million in the bank and they get 1% of that from managing those funds. And they usually help on that side of things. But as far as paying off debt, they usually don't focus a lot on that. You usually have to, seek out someone that's more on the financial coaching side. And I'm someone that strongly recommends paying off debt, and honestly, not depending on, if I'm being honest, the government to provide you with public service loan forgiveness. I think if you can be 100% sure that you'll get public service loan forgiveness, that may be an option. But if you can't, then that you may be really hurting yourself. I Just a general advice. So my first recommendation would be, depending on how much student loan, would be focus on paying off your debts and then investing after that, especially if you're under, let's say, 50 years old. I think that's a pretty solid strategy. Now, if you're maybe over 50 years old, and I can only speak to someone specifically when you have their specific sets of situations, and you're close to public service loan forgiveness, one thing that you can potentially do is put your money that you would have been putting towards the debts in a solid investment plan. So maybe putting that aside in the S&P 500, not spending any of it, and allowing that to grow over the time. And then if you qualify for, and this is in a brokerage account, and again, this is not financial advice, this is just a general recommendation for someone that's like, I really don't want to pay off my student loans, I really want to get public service loan forgiveness, then make sure you're investing the difference into a brokerage account. And that way, if the public service loan forgiveness does not work out, you could potentially just pull the difference out of your investment account and pay off that debt. And like I said, I'm someone that believes in being debt free. And that's one way of having a plan B for public service loan forgiveness. So I'm just going to read through the comments. All that, and this is the Yellow Kimmy Show. All that you know about finance right now and dealing with money on a different scale. Would you want your child to go to college or take a trade? Side note, I'm very proud of you. So I know the Yellow Kimmy Show, and I'm just call her that for the sake of YouTube. We went to college together, and that is a great question. And I can give you general advice and say that I would prefer my child to prefer him to have the $400,000. But if you're married, this is a conversation that you have with your spouse, because me and my wife, even, we feel differently about education in general. So whatever our son, we just have a son right now, whatever our son wants to do in life, we'll support him in that essence. But we had a conversation, and I hope my wife is not watching, but we had a conversation not too long ago. We were thinking about, okay, how do we go about planning for our son college funding? So our son has currently two plans, two set of savings that we're saving for college. So one is in a 529, and another is elsewhere that I'm not gonna say on YouTube, just because I don't want this video to be used against us in the future. But so our son has, multiple savings, and he's only 6 months old. So we know for a fact that he's going to be set. So the question is, do we want to save $200,000 for his college? Do we want to save $300,000 for his college? Because who knows what the cost of a college degree would be 18 years from now, pretty much. And me and my wife would like us to have, she said $400,000 just in case he wants to go to grad school. Then obviously for me, someone like myself who think like myself, I'm like, $400,000 for grad school, he can start $1 billion business with that. And it's something that you really have to work out together if you're married. But if you're not married, I'm someone that is very much like, okay, what type of degree do you want to get? How much money are you going to make from that particular degree? So if you're getting a degree and you're able to pay off your student loans within 5 years, if you wanted to, if that was their mindset of after having that degree with the revenue that was generated from the degree, then I think that's a pretty solid investment. But if it's going to take you 10 years hardcore trying to pay off that investment, for example, if you're paying $50,000 to go to college and you're going to be making $40,000 when you get out of college, I don't personally think that that's a really good investment necessarily. And that's not to say don't go to college. That's to say go to a cheaper college. Maybe go to a 2-year college and then transfer over to a 4-year college. I do think we spend a lot of money we do not have on a college education when we haven't even evaluated if that college degree is going to give us a return on investment. And so there are a lot of degrees that give you a very solid return on investments, and there is a lot of degrees that don't give people a solid return on investments. And I think, especially as parents, because sometimes our children aren't able to make this decision for themselves, as parents, we need to determine and work with our child, is this degree a return on investment? And if your child wants to go into theater and you don't have any connections in that field, I think that's fine. But I wouldn't be paying $100,000 for them to do that. And so, the yellow Kimmy, if you're still there, let me know if that answers your question. And Henry Monroe, my friend makes 36K a year. They want her to pay $900 a month of student loans. And so I'm assuming, if it's a federal loan, they should be able to qualify for income-based repayment, like El Mano mentioned above. And so that would be pretty excessive. Yeah. I do think, as a country, we've been told that, I think college is amazing. College has definitely been super beneficial for me and my wife. And I 100 think college is something that you should consider, but, you should consider it in context to how much money you're going to be making when you're getting out. Hey, Jason, and sorry if I messed up you guys' names. Hey, what is the wiser move to do? Pay off your mortgage first and then buy an investment property, or do both? And Jason, I will speak from my own personal experience my and your goal in life, and this is what we really need to understand. Your investment strategy should be determined by what your goals are in life. And for someone like myself, for those of you that may not know, my full-time job is as an associate pastor. And so my passion is truly serving the community and helping people. And the most effective way for me to do that is to not have to worry about money. And that's why I'm so big on finances. Another effective way for me to do that is to have the money to be able to help people when they find themselves in a difficult situations. And so serving people through financial education and serving people through both giving are two things that I'm passionate about. And so what is wisest for me personally would be to pay off my house. And the reason why that would be the wisest decision, because the return of investment over a short period of time. And so, for example, and I actually plan to do a YouTube video about this, so this kind of helps me to. I'm using a DSLR camera to do the video, and I didn't realize that it cuts off every 30 minutes. Well, I did know that. But back to Jason's, and I'll say Jason because it's two different words. What is wiser to move to? What's a wiser move to do? Pay off your mortgage first and then buy an investment property, or do both? And like I was saying, my goal in life is to help people, and one of the two ways I can do that is by having the money, the funds in order to help people. The other one is making sure that I have the time to invest in people. And in 7 years, I should be able to pay off my mortgage. And so in 7 years, I will be able to pay off my mortgage. What that would allow me to do effectively is that my cost of living then is currently very low. And so with a mortgage paid off, I will need about $1,500 in order to sustain my living. And this is not factoring I don't know how much I'll be paying for my son at that time for whatever stuff that he would be in. But just using my today's numbers. And today, even now, I can potentially make enough money just from YouTube in order to cover my cost of living with a paid off house. And so, what that means is that I wouldn't have to worry about money when I'm helping people. And so, if I wanted to move to, let's say, Africa for a year and just do community service out there, helping people there, I wouldn't have to worry about anything because my house will be paid off and I'll be making enough passive income in order to, sustain my cost of living. But on the other hand, my question would be, how much would I need from rental income in order to sustain, in order to be able to sustain myself, in order to achieve what I consider to be financial independence, which is essentially having enough passive income flow to sustain your living. And I would not be able in the short term, and I do plan to buy investment properties. So this is not to say anything is wrong with investment properties, but it have to make sense for me where it would not delay my ability to become financial independent, where I can do it in 7 years. And so financial independence is important for me, and achieving financial independence sooner than later is important. So for example, I know for a fact that I could probably get a better return in the stock markets over a 30-year period or over a 20-year period by investing over paying off my mortgage. I know that I can probably get a better return in a 20-year period even by buying a second property now over using that money to pay off my house. But it does not allow me to achieve financial independence sooner. And so for me personally, it's not a smart move. And I don't necessarily plan to retire because everything that I do, I love, but I would like financial independence to ensure that I'm always doing what I love and not have to worry about money when I do that. And Jason, let me know if that answers your questions and if you have any follow-up questions as a result of that. And pretty much what I'm saying is determine your goals first, and then your investment strategies should help you towards meeting your specific life goals. I try to help her at times, but it's still a lot. Yeah, Henry, $900 in student loan is that's a lot of money, and unfortunately, a lot of us haven't really. We don't really get economic or financial advice in regards to college above you should apply for this scholarship or you should apply to this, and that's a very unfortunate thing in society. I think anyone going to college should have some type of financial literacy at coaching or counseling. The school should supply this on what type of impact taking out X amount of loans should have. And it's unfortunate how much we don't learn in high school heading into college. Oh, there's a square following. Thank you. Not sure if I can get rid of the square right now. It's the face capture thing on my camera, unfortunately. And I'll have to play with the camera. But that's good. That's good to that's good to know for the next time, Dreon, if I'm pronouncing your name right. If you want me to say your name right, feel free to write it phonetically in the comment section below. Linda M, is it better to pay high interest credit card debt first or smaller balances first? And so that's the famous debt snowball versus debt avalanche. And I'll be honest and say I've given people different advice on this, and it really, really depends on your specific situation. I think the best general advice is to do the debt snowball, which is to pay the smaller balances first and then move on to the higher balance is. But In a non-general sense, if you have three credit cards and one is $1,000, the other one is $1,200, and the next one is, let's say, $1,300, and you're paying $600 a month towards the highest balance, and you're very aggressive about that, you're committed to that, then in that sense, I would say, it would only take you a few months to get out of your credit card debt. It may make sense for you to pay the highest interest first. And so, on a general sense, I would say doing the debt snowball, smaller balances first makes sense. That keeps most people most accountable. But if you know that you can knock out your credit cards in about 6 months based on how much you're contributing to it, then you may want to do the highest interest first because you can probably sustain that behavior over the course of 6 months. Over the course of a year or longer, it's harder for people to sustain their behavior. And even if you feel like you can't do that, if you feel like you can do that, then you even if you feel like you can do that, chances are you really don't know. And so sometimes I say play it safer with those things that you play it safer to those things that you know is impact your behavior. D Ryan. Thanks, D Ryan. I agree. Don't rush to pay off your mortgage. Just get it under 80% LTV and get rid of your PMI. Then start getting your investments because a lot of investments will pay better than paying off your mortgage. And D Ryan, just to be clear, that is not what I was saying. Just because what I am saying is know your personal goals. Your goals will determine effectively if paying off your mortgage makes sense for you. And my goals personally dictates that I pay off my mortgage because it will lead me to financial independence sooner. Now, someone else's goals may not be to get to financial independence, let's say at the age of 45. They may plan to um, um, they may plan to retire at a traditional retirement age, let's say 60 years, and are comfortable waiting until then, maybe to touch their retirement investments. And in that sense, it may make sense to hold on to your mortgage. And I say may. And so your goals in life should really determine if you want to rush to pay off your mortgage or not. But in general, obviously, the less debt you have, the less risk you have in life in general. And so, like I said, I'm someone that is very, very strong on paying off debts. And I would say if you're not maxing out your retirement investments, or if you don't have a currently have a um, an IRA, investment retirement account, then I would say that is probably the best place to take out your S&P 500 or to purchase your S&P 500 fund. So right now I am currently using Vanguard as my primary IRA investment tool. So I max out Vanguard every year, which I believe the cap for this year may be $6,000 or something like that. And then anything above my maximum retirement investment, I also put into a brokerage account. And so for my brokerage account investments, I can use Charles Schwab maybe. I do use as well Robinhood for all of the investments that I do on YouTube. And so you can have multiple accounts. I think if your primary purpose is like just set it and forget it type of investments, which I would recommend for most people, Vanguard is a good for an IRA. And if you're trying to do some type of brokerage account investments, Charles Schwab's may be a good account for that. Or Fidelity. We also have a Fidelity account. Elmano, that's a great question in terms of getting Black people to circulate their money. And if you haven't already, definitely smash the like button for me or hit the like button. It really helps out the channel. But how do we get more Black people to invest, circulate our dollars within the community? And I think, even, and I'm forgetting his name, and maybe it's best I don't call his name. But recently, there's been a lot of controversy around a prominent Black investor that that millions of people gave him money and for an investment fund to buy real estate, and the fund is losing a ton of money. So a lot of people are losing their money while investing in their fund. And I would say this, I think especially in the Black community, I think we need to make sure we take care of our household first. That should be the first place that we patch any leaks and make sure that our personal house is on a solid foundation. And after our house is on a solid foundation, maybe we can work on making sure our family is in on a solid foundation. And so that can be your immediate family, and that could be your extended family. And then after that, working our way out into what forms of group economics makes the most sense. And it's the same way that you would say that you should not invest money in the stock market that you aren't willing to lose, especially in single stocks. It's the same way that I would say that make sure you have your home taken care of before we are gung-ho about the community focused investments. And so we can give of our time, we can give of our talent. And I say this because if we're not in a place to lose the money sometimes when we're investing in each other, that will cause us to, if we do lose money, that will cause us to develop an attitude of, I'm never gonna invest with Black people again. I'm never gonna, do anything for the community. But when we have a solid foundation and we're in a place that we can lose a few dollars potentially, it would make us better stewards and better able to judge solid investments within our communities. And I would tell you this, just because someone is promoting something as a pro-Black investment, whatever, does not mean that you should not do your due diligence in that investment. You still need to take the same due diligence and make sure that it can be successful, because you may end up investing in this thing and you may end up promoting it to your family and friends as a good investment. And as a community, it does not make sense for us to put our money in losing endeavors. And I know our heart is in it. And, I will be honest and say I've invested in the community and in people where I've lost my money as well. But I've never been angry about it or mad about it, because it was always money that I was able to lose. And as a community, I really want to stress taking care of our homes first and looking at that as the first Black community investment. And then from there, expanding our sights onto, okay, how do we further develop group economics? Because if we're able to develop wealth as individuals, it would help us to we would be better able to judge good investments, and it would be better able to allow us to be even leaders in the community investments that we're trying to do. But I do like a lot of things that I'm seeing on buytheblock.com and different sites like this. But again, I wouldn't encourage people to do that unless you already have a solid foundation. Elmano, I'm not going to say the name in the video, but you are right. You are right on the name. And just because I try really hard not to pull down Black people when I personally don't fully know their motives. And so, okay, I'll say his name, Jay Morrison. I don't know if his intention was to scam people. I don't know if his intention, he could have had pure intentions. And as Black people, I think a lot of times we're quick to judge each other when whatever we try to do for the community doesn't work. And that's why it's so risky even to give people advice because, if the advice you give them don't work, they're like, you told me to do this and I failed. And we take no responsibility in our ability to properly evaluate, is this a good investment? Is this good advice? And I'm someone, my wife and I talk about this all the time. One of my biggest pet peeve is accountability. And I think, especially as adults, any decision we need to take accountability for it. And so if people, and this is not to bash the victims, but if people invested in a venture, let's say like the Tulsa, Oklahoma situation, and did not do their due diligence or did it based on emotion, then maybe that's a lesson learned that we need to make sure we're in a place where we're okay with losing these funds when we're doing these investments. And this is advice you will give to anyone. This is not just a black advice for a black community relationship. You should make sure you're on solid foundation. You should make sure you have your emergency fund. You should make sure the money that you invest, especially within the community, because it is a risky endeavor, is money that you're willing to lose. Latoya Richardson asks, "What are my thoughts on Susus?" And I will give this general statements. And if you know, I've had a lot of videos on Susus or the Blessing Loom on my channel, and they have caused a lot of controversy. And I'm no stranger, or I'm not scared of any controversial topic. But I am not a fan of the Blessing Loom. I am not a fan of the Blessing Loom because I understand it to be a pyramid scheme, and I know people are making good money from it, but eventually it will collapse. It happens to everything, every pyramid scheme. Eventually it will collapse, and eventually more people would lose money than will gain money that benefited from it. And because of this, I cannot be a fan of the Blessing Loom. But I would say that the traditional Susu, and I have a video about this, so if you want to know how the traditional Susu works and how you can differentiate it from the Blessing Loom, the traditional Susu is something that I'm a big fan of. And because it allows Black people to pool and aggregate their money, and has been an effective tool, not just for the Black communities, but for all communities in order to start businesses. And so I love the Susu. But the dangerous thing of even doing a Susu now is because of the Blessing Loom. And, I hate the fact that the two are being compared as the same thing, or the terminologies are being intertwined, or people are calling it, because it does tarnish the name and the ability to create effective Susus. So I think those were all of the questions. Are there any additional questions that people may have? All right. So I think I got to all of the questions. Thank you, everyone that joined the chat. This is my first. Have you used Ameritrade? No, I have not used Ameritrade. I have used E-Trade. I have used Charles Schwab, Robinhood, Vanguard. There's another one I think I have. Acorn, So I've used several different trading platforms, but I have Fidelity, but I have not used Ameritrade. All right. Like I said, if there are no more questions, thank you guys again for joining me. Thank you for supporting the channel. I'll probably at least try to do a live video maybe once a month, maybe more often as the channel grows. We'll see. But I'll probably try to do a live video at least once a month, maybe twice a month, depending on, honestly, my availability and what that looks like. Again, thanks for joining. I'll probably be listening to the YouTube video to see what the audio quality was like, because, Like I said, I am a preacher, so I tend to shout sometimes. Thank you. Thank you.